In our museum, we have a fragment of John Bunyan's original tomb. The stone stands 29 inches high and measures 22 inches across. The top right-hand corner is lost, as is much of the inscription. But if you look carefully at the stone, you can just make out a little of the worn carved lettering. This fragment of Bunyan's original tomb was gifted to Bunyan Meeting by Highgate Congregational Church in 1952. Along with the gravestone came a carved marble slab, inscribed with the following inscription. The stone beneath formed part of the tomb of John Bunyan in Bunhill Fields, removed on reparation, AD 1861. The J. Jennings thereupon mentioned was a descendant of Mr. Strudwick, deacon of Harecourt Chapel, in whose house on Snow Hill John Bunyan died, and in whose new grave he was buried, AD 1688. The last two lines of the inscription on this marble slab are illegible. You can just make out a little of the inscription on the gravestone, which is referred to on this accompanying marble slab. The gravestone in our museum was acquired by the Reverend Josiah Viney when a more elaborate tomb was constructed by public subscription in Bunhill Fields. This piece of the original tomb was placed in the entrance lobby to Highgate Congregational Church, beneath the inscribed marble slab to which we've referred. Following repairs to war damage, the church at Highgate was reordered in 1949, and the gravestone was removed and eventually came to Bedford. Josiah Viney was minister at Highgate from 1857 to 1883, and through his wife was wealthy. His wife was a piper, and her family had been responsible for the building of the new Portsmouth docks. It is thought that Viney contributed generously to the cost of the new Bunyan tomb, and so he got his hands on the old stone and proudly displayed it in his Highgate Chapel, which opened in 1859, just before the tomb's replacement. In his 1849 book, Bunhill Memorials, J. A. Jones records Bunyan's inscription on the original tomb. Mr. John Bunyan, author of The Pilgrim's Progress, died 31st of August 1688, aged 60. Jones continues, the above is all that is inscribed so far as he is concerned on the tomb, which is erected over the vault that contains the remains of Bunyan. At least the bodies of 12 other persons, if not more, are interred in the same vault. Those names are respectively inscribed on the tomb and on each side. Jones records a second inscription on Bunyan's tomb, that to Robert Bragg, who was minister of the Congregational Church at Paved Alley, but he makes no mention of the inscription on the portion of the tomb that we possess. Bunyan's tomb was restored between 1861 and 1862. An inscription upon the new tomb records that it was restored by public subscription under the presidency of the Right Honourable, the Earl of Shaftesbury, May 1862. Even though Bunyan's tomb was restored, the future of Bunhill Fields was very uncertain, and some had sought to acquire this land for building. In 1864, John Remington Mills, a leading congregational layman, petitioned the City of London to preserve Bunhill Fields. A report into this ancient dissenters' burial ground was undertaken, and in 1865 it was resolved that the City of London should take responsibility for the preservation of this historic site. Bunhill Fields was purchased by the City of London for the sum of £10,000. The burial ground was restored, and new railings and gates were erected along the city road boundary. In the August of 1688, Bunyan visited Reading to preach the gospel and to make peace between a father and son who had become alienated. He preached at the meeting house on the bank of the River Kennet, and after making peace between the father and son, Bunyan travelled back to London, on horseback, through a very heavy tempest and much rain. He was seized with a mortal fever, and the end came 10 days later, while he was the guest of his friend, Mr. John Strudwick, who was at Snow Hill. It is said of Bunyan that he comforted those who wept around him, exhorting them to trust in God and pray to him for mercy and forgiveness of their sins, telling them what a glorious exchange it would be to leave their troubles and cares of a wretched mortality, to live with Christ forever, with peace and joy inexpressible. I go to the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, who will, through the mediation of his blessed Son, receive me, though a sinner. John Bunyan died on the 31st of August, 1688, and was buried 3 days later in Bunhill Fields, that place made sacred by the many saints of God whose bodies rest in what is often known as God's acre.